problems. So maybe he will turn up next year to the next year's Remigrasjon conference. We will proceed with our program, and the next speaker is the party chairman of Alternative for Lithuania, Valdas Tutkus. I will also briefly say a few words about Valdas Tutkus. I have met him on a couple of occasions. A very friendly man. His background, he's a military man. He holds the rank as a retired brigadier general, and he's also served as the Minister of Defense for Lithuania. That was correct, huh?
Thank you, Owen. Thank you, Owen. Thank you, friends. First of all, let me express my deepest gratitude for being here, for the invitation, and to have an opportunity to talk about one of the most important issues, I believe, but there's some corrections. So that I am, in fact, not Brigadier General, I am Lieutenant General, and I was the Chief of Defense of Lithuania. So before, I served in different places. I was a Ranger Company commander in Afghanistan through the Soviet Union, you can see it in wounded. And so it means so that when we're talking about security and a war, so I know what it's about. So that but today we are not talking about the war, but anyhow we will touch probably the question of security, because remigration, immigration, economy, culture, what's all about we talk here, they are very much connected. And in fact, so it's a little bit difficult for me to talk, because the previous speakers have almost told everything which I like to say, and I just like to address to Anders as my colleague, because everybody who settles the country separates. We are colleagues, so that in fact, so he described very correctly the situation in Sweden, which we know about, and we know that there are similarities in Germany, in France, in other countries, and so on. And that is where we are going, and that we should accept it. We like what we shouldn't accept, but that is reality. And I think with John, that was one of the points, that this is an industry. That is money, that is a big money, the same as a war. The problem is, from my point of view, because the global authorities, they in fact support this. I didn't see the line, but it seems to me that probably they are part of that. And if we will look the policy which we today face from, let's say, our commission, from some national authorities. So, from my point of view, that is a little bit different angle, because already for decades they train our youngsters, especially. It's very difficult to change my mind unless yours, for example, or John or Stefan, but I'm happy to see the young people here, but it's different with them. So, and in fact, so that from my point of view, there is what is pushing to our youngsters the new values, wrong values, that nothing is something. And in fact, so you should believe to the something which in fact is nothing. It's an illusion. Like somebody says that the man may become woman and win Olympics. That's an illusion. When coming to migrants, I spent something like 14 years in Muslim countries. And we have a lot of friends among the Muslims. I never say that they're bad. The questions are different. And if somebody says that we can integrate to Norwegian society, or in my case to Lithuanian society, the Muslims, that's an illusion. No choice. Well, another illusion, I'm sorry, so that it looks over because I just read it, so a lot of things which I was planning to say is what I said, therefore I don't like to repeat, but let's say what we face in Lithuania, especially for the young people, they are presenting the new way of thinking that we are not Lithuanians, not Norwegians, not Swedish, not Germans, we are citizens of the world. And that is an illusion. But problem when these values are pushing from the kindergarten, from school, universities, and so on, people start to believe that is the truth. But that is not the truth. And talking about the remigration, before just think about what this migration is. What is about this migration? Is challenge? Is problem? Or is the threat of our own national identity? And I will make a few figures about my country. So when we get independent, we was a nation, something like 4 million. That's not the biggest nation, but good enough. So now in Lithuania, nobody knows exactly how many we have, but somebody say that maybe something about 2.5, because another say, because the economical situation became immigrants. In fact, so that they met a lot of them, not everybody is welcome, but they leave my country. And now, if we take the statistic from the last year, we got 17.5 thousand children born. I'm not sure that all are there Lithuanians, but anyhow, 17.5 thousand. 48,000 died. And because of the forcing of the European Commission, Lithuania legally accepts 40,000 migrants from EU. And as I mentioned, 14 years spent in Muslim countries. So I don't know how much is in Norway, but in Lithuania, in fact, average of the Lithuanian family is 1.3 children. Maybe 1.5, but maybe 1, sometimes 2. So, but in these cultures, which is different from us, 5 is not many, 10 is more or less. So, and when I'm thinking about my country, and I force you to think about Norway, about Sweden, about Germany, even the big country. So what will be with my country in some 20 years? I'm not sure that I will be alive, but hopefully yes. But in 20 years, if we will get something approximately 1 million migrants, which will be at least 5 times more, so that, and I can be sure that my grandchildren or grandchildren will speak Lithuanians. Probably this land will be called Lithuanian, so, or maybe not. But I'm not sure that the Lithuanian language is very important for us, for culture, for our cultures are still remain as the language, and my nation will still remain as a nation. And that is, from my point of view, that is existential threat. Stop talking about challenge, about toleration, about human rights. Of course, there are human rights, but the question, what is the human rights? Everybody do whatever they like, or that is agree in some borders, freedom of movement of the life. Because if somebody like to make a crime, that's human right? No? So I disagree, and probably you disagree. That means that's not exactly like that. And talking about immigrants, in fact, so that we made nobody talk about that, but in fact there are 3 types of migrants here. The one is illegal migration, and it's clear for me because they even call like that, illegal migration. Personally, for me, as for a military person, it's very difficult to understand why we should accept illegal migrants to our countries, to our societies. Why should pay money by our taxpayers? Why should we sustain them and keep them inside, knowing exactly they will never accept our culture? So therefore, from my point of view, there is an only way that the first step, countries shouldn't accept illegal migrants at all, with 0 toleration. And step number 2, these who are already in, I'm talking just about illegal immigrants, these should be sent back home, even for our expenses, if we need. Even we should pay for them. But they should leave our countries and they should go to their own countries and try to make democracies as their countries. That's why maybe it's a little bit too strong, but all we accept they're illegal. But as long as they're illegal, the way should be legal. And John talking about the legal side, so it's dependent on authorities. I mean, so if you need to make changes in some law, it's possible to do if you are in power. And when I'm talking about the power, the question what power is about. If the power is an instrument to achieve our goals, that's okay. And therefore we should try to achieve our goals by power. The second group, that is group of legal immigrants, which are coming to our countries for job. Sometimes we invite them by our own, so it's difficult, so we can send them back. We cannot send them back. But in this case, I know the Russian countries, exists such a kind of working visas when they accept them temporarily for 5 years, for 4 years. That is already depends on the legal question. So that and after that they should leave back. And that means in this case we will manage this thing. And another thing is there are already people who was born here. And that is a challenge. That's not the problem, but that is a challenge. You have no rights sending them out. From other hand, being a different nation, different nationality, they have a right to keep the language, to keep the culture, to keep the families. And that is their human rights. The question only they should keep the language, but probably we shouldn't. And they cannot dictate for us what rules we should accept to live. And therefore, probably we should think how to arrange the question that they will not live in some areas altogether. We talked with John yesterday, so and he told me that in France there are some thousands of the places where the migrants live just in some migrants areas, and they don't care about the French law. They don't care about the French culture. And so, and how can we accept that? I don't know. Therefore, these people should be split around and should put in the situation when, for example, if you live in a village and or around you only Norwegian and I'm only Lithuanian, probably I will be forced to, not strongly, but just for my life, to learn the language, to accept the culture, to accept the tradition of the village. But if you will live in a village where there are all Lithuanians and only living here, so probably you will need to accept my rules. So therefore, this way, I believe it's really necessary. So we should think about that. And that what I started from, that was Stefan made very clear. We should attend understanding of our young people about importance of our roots actually, about importance of our languages, about importance of our culture, because from my opinion, the culture code is existential for us. If we will lose it, we will lose our nation as such. And that is not the question. In fact, there are questions, but for me it's a clear answer. One is, we should accept the situation and continue to swim downstream. So it means, Andres, I like very much what you told. It means they were slowly but clearly going to this situation. If that's acceptable, that's okay. There is another way. We should agree that it's unacceptable for us. Therefore, we should be prepared to the fight. And this fight will be very bloody. Because, as you know, that is an industry. The billions and trillions. And normally people, or groups of people who benefit this, they simply don't like to say that, well, okay, so something wrong with that. Authorities which we are elected, for example, one of the challenges, biggest challenges, why it's difficult? Because almost 50% of the population simply don't want to election. Because they are jailers, so nothing to go to election. So you will change nothing, you will do nothing, and so on. In fact, so the politicians are just rotated all the same. And I believe Einstein once mentioned very right. So if you make an experiment 9 times with the same condition, so you shouldn't be surprised because the 10th time something will be different. That is the same. The current political authorities cannot and don't have a will and don't have a right even to stay and to move our countries and our nation to destruction. And another one that is, and I'm really happy to be together with Stefan, representing not only Alternative for Lithuania, but also Union for Europe, because that is the culture. We should promote our culture from kindergarten. We should remind for Norwegian guys that they are Vikings. We should remind for Lithuanians that we are knights. So we should remind that sometimes Lithuania was still to the Black Sea. Of course we will never be such a big again, but here inside. Probably you should remember Norwegian churches, which are 1,000 years or 900 years. These wooden churches with only gates. And every nation should be proud of our own. And we should agree that only when we build a young generation, and that is belong for us, not necessarily to be in power, to distribute the culture, to organize events, to change the culture collective between Norway and Lithuania, Germany, Austria, other countries, because anyhow, as Stefan mentioned, we are the same culture, the same Christian values. We are the same, different nations, but general way is still the same. So the question is, should we just talk about that? And that's called discussion club. Well, I'm too old to continue to go to the discussion clubs. Or should we move, as we do in Lithuania, to the countryside? Much easier to speak to the people in the villages, because they're still somehow Lithuanians. So should we go to the kindergartens, make a place, make a toys connected with our culture? Should we go to the schools and universities? Should we organize round tables? And this we can do even without being in power. And should we explain to people that only we, I mean national patriots, who cares about nation, about our motherland, about our culture. So that is, therefore we should stay together. Because individually, I believe that is impossible to solve the question. So I mean, in military, we should describe the situation. We should evaluate the situation. We should make a decision and move ahead. So we told them also move ahead, so let's move ahead together. Thank you.